My name is Stephanie Adams, and until that Saturday, I believed my marriage was the safest part of my life. Eric and I weren't the dramatic couple people talked about. We rarely argued. We paid our bills on time, celebrated birthdays with homemade dinners, and never forgot to kiss each other goodnight. Friends often described us as dependable, and I proudly agreed. Our Saturdays followed the same comforting routine: coffee at our favorite cafe, a walk through the local farmers market, then grocery shopping at Riverside Market on Elm Street. It had been our tradition for years. That morning felt no different. Eric wore the grey Henley shirt I'd given him for his birthday 2 years earlier. While we wandered through the aisles, he deliberately picked up the wrong coffee brand just to tease me. "You'll never notice," he joked. I laughed, swapped it for the correct one, and rolled my eyes. Little moments like that had built our marriage. Nothing extraordinary, just ordinary happiness. By the time we reached the checkout, the store had grown crowded with families, restless children, and elderly couples discussing coupons. As the cashier began scanning our groceries, Eric leaned close. "I need to step outside," he whispered. "A client keeps calling. It'll only take 10 minutes. That sounded perfectly reasonable. He worked as a financial consultant, and weekend emergencies weren't unusual. "Go ahead," I said. "I'll finish here." He smiled warmly, kissed my forehead, and disappeared through the automatic doors. I watched him leave without the smallest hint of suspicion. After paying, I packed the groceries myself and waited near the entrance. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I checked my phone. Nothing. 15 minutes later, the first uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. It wasn't panic, just a quiet question. Where was he? I stepped closer to the glass doors, scanning the parking lot for our blue SUV. No sign of Eric. I told myself he was probably still talking on the phone. Then someone quietly spoke behind me. "Ma'am?" I turned to see an older employee wearing Riverside Market's green vest. His name tag read Frank, 22 years. I'd seen him many times helping elderly shoppers reach high shelves or loading groceries into their cars. Today, however, his expression was different. He looked uncomfortable, almost guilty. "I think you should come with me," he said softly. I frowned. "Is there a problem with my payment?" He slowly shook his head. "No, not that." Without another word, he led me toward an employees-only hallway beside the pharmacy. Something in his face made my heartbeat quicken. I followed him, still carrying 2 heavy grocery bags. Frank opened the door to a small security office lined with surveillance monitors. He closed the door behind us. Without speaking, he sat at the computer and pulled up a recording. Then he pressed play. The screen showed Eric, not outside making a phone call, not sitting in our SUV. He was standing in a restricted hallway near the loading dock. Across from him stood an attractive blonde woman about our age, dressed in a navy business blazer. Neither of them noticed the security camera. They weren't kissing. They weren't embracing. But they stood far too comfortably together. She touched his arm with easy familiarity. He leaned toward her, as if continuing a conversation they'd shared countless times before. Frank quietly broke the silence. "I've seen them meet here several times over the past few months." My hands tightened around the grocery bags. "I kept wondering if I should say something," he continued. "After my wife passed away, I spent years wishing someone had told me the truth before it was too late." I couldn't breathe. Outside those walls, customers continued shopping as though nothing had happened. Inside that tiny room, my entire life had just begun to fall apart. I thanked Frank, though I barely recognized my own voice. The words came automatically, the way people respond when their minds haven't yet accepted reality. A few moments later, I walked back through the store carrying my groceries as if nothing had happened. Outside, Eric was leaning casually against our SUV. He smiled the moment he saw me. "There you are," he said, taking the bags from my hands. "Sorry that took so long." The client wouldn't stop talking. Then he kissed my cheek. I smiled back. I said absolutely nothing. During the drive home, he chatted about investment portfolios, difficult clients, and vacation plans for the fall. I nodded at the right moments, pretending to listen while my thoughts replayed the security footage again and again. That night, after dinner, something caught my attention. For the first time in 19 years, Eric placed his phone face down before sliding it beneath his pillow. It was a tiny gesture, but it screamed louder than any confession. Lying beside him in the darkness, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. If there was one thing marriage had taught me, it was that emotions fade, but facts remain. If I accused him without proof, he would simply deny everything. So the next morning I bought a small black notebook. Every unusual phone call, every late meeting, every unexplained business dinner, every excuse. I wrote them all down. Within 2 weeks, patterns began to appear. Every Thursday evening he disappeared for client meetings. Every second Tuesday another mysterious appointment appeared on his calendar. The names changed. The explanations changed. The schedule never did. One Tuesday, I told Eric I had dinner with a client. Instead, I followed him. He parked outside a small coffee shop across town. 20 minutes later, the same blonde woman from the security footage walked inside. I watched through the window. There were no kisses, no romantic embraces. Instead, folders moved across the table, documents, financial statements, signatures. Whatever connected them wasn't just personal, it was business. That discovery frightened me far more than an affair would have. Days later, while organizing tax records at home, I found something else. Hidden inside an old investment folder was an unfamiliar account number linked to a bank I'd never heard Eric mention. After 19 years together, I believed I knew every account we owned. This one wasn't ours. That afternoon, I scheduled a meeting with an experienced family attorney named Rebecca Lawson. She listened carefully as I explained everything. When I finished, she folded her hands and looked directly into my eyes. "Don't confront him," she said firmly. "First, we find out where the money is going." Rebecca hired a forensic accountant. Together, they uncovered years of carefully hidden financial transfers. Hundreds of small payments had quietly disappeared into a consulting company owned by one person, Natalie Brooks, the woman from the grocery store. Over 5 years, more than $300,000 had been transferred through shell companies into investment properties purchased under fake business structures. Eric wasn't simply planning to leave me. He had been building an entirely separate financial life while convincing me we were saving for retirement together. The realization hurt more than betrayal itself. He hadn't made one terrible mistake. He had made thousands of deliberate choices. Weeks later, Rebecca arranged a private meeting. Eric arrived first. Natalie entered moments later. Neither expected to see the other. I calmly placed every document on the conference table: bank records, company filings, property deeds, and years of hidden transfers. No shouting, no tears, only facts. Eric tried to explain. He claimed everything was legal. Rebecca quietly interrupted him. "These documents tell a different story." Then she slid one final envelope across the table. Inside were court filings freezing the hidden assets, and divorce papers already signed by me. For the first time in 19 years, Eric had no answers. Months later, the divorce was finalized. The home remained mine. The hidden assets became part of the legal settlement. I eventually opened my own design business, something I'd postponed for years while building someone else's future. Sometimes I still drive past Riverside Market. I think about Frank. One ordinary employee chose honesty over silence. He didn't save my marriage. He saved my future. And looking back now, I realize that sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't protecting someone's feelings. It's giving them the truth before it's too late.